Hi all, a very good evening and I welcome all of you today at Being Agile versus Doing Agile webinar. It's a pleasure to have Arie van today with us and I would like to thank him for giving us an opportunity to do a webinar and to share his thought with us. So let's get started. So let me go through the agenda of this webinar. So we'll start with the introduction of innovation roots. We'll talk about the logistics required for this webinar. Then I'll go through the speaker introduction about Arie van Bennekum. Then I'll hand over a control to Arie to talk on being agile versus doing agile. Then hopefully we'll have a Q&A question and answer session during and after the webinar. So who we are. We are the skill transfer journeyman and trusted consulting provider of strategic, methodology, and technology advisory and solutions to enterprise building largest and innovative solutions. What are the services we do provide? We do provide agile consulting and coaching. We provide agile training in-house and public. We are the CA Tech Continuous Delivery Suite's official reseller. So logistics. I would suggest please use a LAN cable for joining this webinar. Wi-Fi connection are unstable. Please use high quality speakers or headphones for better sound quality. Please keep your microphone muted. All the questions will be taken via Q&A chat box. Please drop your all the question in Q&A chat box. The webinar will be recorded. Slides and the recording will be made available on SlideShare, which is slideshare.net/inoru. Please do subscribe to our YouTube channel to stay updated with upcoming and past events. We appreciate your cooperation. So Arie van Bennekum. Arie van Bennekum is one of the original authors of the Agile Manifesto representing DSDM and expert in area of Agile Project Management, team facilitation, Agile techniques, and user involvement. In his several presentations and lectures about agility, he has emphasized presenting an all-round belief in teams, which helps them to reach their best potential towards delivering to end users. At present, as one of his thought leaders, Arie focuses his energy on leading big agile transformation for leading international corporates and researching better ways of integrating agile. Arie is also chair of the Agile Coaches International Lecturer at universities and sought after keynote speakers at the conferences. So let me hand over all the controls to Arie.
Okay, I hope everyone can hear me. Thank you for making time to be here. I don't think I have to introduce myself anymore. That's already been done, so thank you for that. I would like to, the flow of my talk, because the title is Being Agile versus Doing Agile. I would like to align first on what in my perception Agile is, and then including why do we do it these days. And then I would like to talk a little bit about what I call doing agile, and then we go into being agile. For me, it's fine if we take the talk, let's say half an hour, maybe 35 minutes from this. And the moment that you have any questions, we can, you can share questions with our chair, and he can share them with me, and I can try to answer them. First, I want to share something with you. I'm 54 years old now. Before I started my career in the IT in 1987, I was working in the hospital. I've been working in the army. And in both situations, I have been perceived as working in a different way. The motto in my life is, you are the architect of your own life. And what I mean with this is that I don't believe when people say, oh, with this, that's with us, it's impossible. I don't talk about illness or that kind of stuff, but I'm talking about business-wise and being able, you know, to make happen what needs to happen. I started my career, as I said, in the IT as a COBOL developer at that time, 1987, all the way through 1994. And that's the moment where I thought I was doing very traditional waterfall sequential projects with Dutch governmental organizations, and it was one very important thing. I just didn't like my work, and I thought, you know, I'm spending so much time on this, and I need to find out how I can make it more valuable for myself. And I thought, no, I found out that for me, I would say, you know, the most important thing in, you know, having value for myself is that I feel that I deliver something to my client. You know, I'm spending time, I'm spending my client's money, and I want to do something that I don't want to say, you know, makes my client happy, because that sounds so, you know, the personal, but it's, I want to satisfy it in terms of, okay, I'm having a bunch of people here in a team doing the work, and now they deliver something that really helps me in my business, achieving goals. And I just found out that I was, you know, in the last project I did, I was there for, I think, like 5 months. Doing technical design, and I was translating a document into a other document, handing it over to someone who could read the first document. So my added value was approximately 0. I made a decision, and okay, whatever happens, I'm not going to do this anymore. This is where comes in again. You're the architect of your own life. I left the hospital because I discovered it was not, you know, what I wanted to do the rest of my life. I left the army for the same reason. And now I was again on a crossroad, and I thought, I'm not going to work like this. And if it means I'm getting fired, I will be fired. So I went to my management and I said, okay, this is what I don't want to do anymore. And to be honest, I don't know what I would like to, because I don't know what's out there. And one of my managers, and I still thank him for this, he brought me into the area of rapid application development. And I got into a way of working what I call full delivery. It's not software development, it's making a solution or a product where, of course, there's software development in the work to be done, but it's also, you know, administrative processes to take care of, and there's education, and there's marketing, and there's communication, and you make the full delivery of a new product or a service. And within a couple of weeks, you know, being interactive with client representatives, prototyping sessions, getting in the feedback, you know, that's what really, I thought, okay, this is the way to work. And then also, not just the happiness of the people involved in the work that you do in the project at the time, but also at the end, a client, a sponsor of the project, saying, hey, you know, this is really what we need, it really works. And this is what I think, you know, a definition, one of the definitions of Agile comes in. Now for me, Agile is an interaction concept. What you want to do with Agile is you want to deliver better business value earlier with a better internal quality. Better business value because you need to deliver what the client really needs, not what he wants, what you think they should be, but what the client needs. So that's what you need to focus on. You need to deliver it earlier, and in 1994 we had a limit, you know, for example, in the book of James Martin, like 6 months, but today it has to be even faster, and much faster, and better internal quality. We live in a digital era, and if we use solutions or products and a digital platform that are not working properly, we just simply switch to another. So this is why we do Agile. And to be able to deliver that, you need to bring, you know, to take out, to cut out all the misunderstandings. And misunderstandings are taken out by replacing remote and written communication by face-to-face communication. And getting in feedback and having feedback, you know, decided on the spot to take in or not, changes to take in or not, doing it in a face-to-face process instead of a written process where you send emails and documents up and down and you have to wait for someone to respond, and you make misinterpretations of the email or the document that's been sent out, and you respond based on your assumptions and the misunderstandings, and there's a total mix-up. So for me, Agile means better business value earlier to the market with a better internal quality. And you do this by having a high level of interaction with all stakeholders, not just the business, but all stakeholders, because you want to cut out the misunderstandings and you want to cut out all the delays. That's what we're looking for. So for me, Agile is an interaction concept, and all the rest is facilitating that interaction concept and the speed that you generate with the interaction concept. Very simple. If you want to deliver every 2 weeks, you cannot do things by hand anymore. You have to go into automated processes for integration, delivery, testing, etc. But the fundament of Agile is, in my opinion, an interaction concept, where you make sure that you're all on the same page and that you take people with you along the line, not having them a check or a control at the end of a process, but all the way through, so you can get the feedback earlier and you can repair and change what is needed before you go into delivery. We do this, no, let me rephrase. I started doing this because I liked the way it worked. I saw client satisfaction, happy participation in the project. That was absolutely awesome. I started doing this in 1994, and as you see, like the last 24 years, the need for the earlier delivery, compared to the past, is becoming more and more urgent. And we see it. A lot of companies. It's for a reason we are here at the webinar. A lot of companies are going into Agile coaching, Agile transformation, Agile working, Agile pilots, etc. Agile as an organization makes you capable to respond what's happening out there. It makes you, as an organization, capable to deliver your products and your services earlier to the market. But you have to do it together. So having part of the organization working in an Agile way is awesome. But it doesn't mean that you have your corporate products earlier to the market, because obviously there are still checks at the end, or your human resource management is not facilitating, the team approach that we have in Agile, or we still have standards to apply to that we only check at the end, and they send us up and down and they cause delay because we are obviously not working to standards or anything. So for me, Agile is an interaction concept. You need it to be future-proof, because if you're not able to respond, your competition will. And the point is, you lose very fast. Now, we see the trend of Agile coaching and Agile transformations. I don't know about where you live, but where I live, it's all over. I travel Europe most of the time, it's all over. Now, first of all, I want to make a distinction between Agile coaching and Agile transformations. For me, coaching makes you better in what you do, and transformation helps you to do things differently. And this is where being Agile come in. I see too many people, too many organizations that have all sorts of Agile working, because there are so many methods and practices. But the underlying paradigms don't change. And this is what I found out as the biggest hurdle to take in a transformation. When I started doing Agile, it felt to me very natural. So you have your workshops, and you have dailies, and you have your visuals, and it's all awesome, it's great. And but we forget that in an organization we have, let's call in, formal and or informal standards for documentation, how we make decisions, how we communicate, how we have personal development plans, etc., how we manage the knowledge in the organization. And this is where Agile becomes more complex. I call it the complexity and the simplicity of Agile. Again, for me, Agile itself, the interaction concept, is very simple. We make sure that we have high frequently the face-to-face contact with those whom it concerns. And the face-to-face contact is about, the progress. Where are we as a team? Like the dailies and the retros. Do we need to improve? Do we change? But also on the content, where we have heartbeats and demos and that kind of sessions with the right people, because this is where we can learn, this is where we can improve, and this is where we can get our feedback. But what I see too often is that we see, teams working Agile. They have things like a daily, they have retros and demos, but I can see still I'm doing in the sequential process. I meet organizations that say, you know, we have a sprint for functional design, and then we have a sprint for technical design, and then we go into development, and after development we have a sprint for tests. Those are the kind of things that really are concerning me. I have been talking this week to a couple of big corporates. They're using a lot of Agile coaches. They're trying to go into transformation, or they are in transformation maybe. But if they recruit a new external coach that needs to be onboarded in the administration of the corporate, it takes 3 to 5 weeks to get them on board. And those are the kind of things that I say, okay, you know, you do Agile, you're in front of a board at 9 in the morning, and you have a retro, you know, so yeah, we talk about lessons learned, but the underlying things that you need, like, okay, what's the standard on documentation? Do we still make Word documents in the cloud, or are we going into information radiators? Decision making, you know, if we have changing requirements, you know, in a heartbeat and somewhere in a sprint, is the team empowered to make the decisions? Managers interfering in requirements list or the backlog if you like, instead of focusing on value. And this is where the real, you know, difficulty in doing Agile versus being Agile comes in. Being Agile means that you adopt for Agile the underlying paradigms, of which I named a few a couple of seconds ago. It means changing your organization. It means, for example, doing it all together. Just the simple fact that if we make a new product, we don't integrate marketing in the team. We don't integrate, for example, operations in the team. We don't integrate the legal department in. So we make a new product, we make a new service, and at the end, and when we want to deliver, where we should be ready for the operational environment to deliver to the market, we still have all those checks to go. And the check will mean that there can be a non-acceptance, there can be a no. So it goes back down, you know, up the waterfall, and again we have to repair and we have a delay. And that's the one thing that we want to avoid, working Agile, delay. So one of the big problems is, okay, let's do it all together. One of the paradigms. Another one is in the interaction rituals, as I call them, that people don't show up. Or, for example, that people do them. I see people who do dailies that take 45 minutes, for example. So the point is, if you go into the interaction rituals, you have to understand that those are the ones that are driving your success. So if you mess them up, if you waste time, if you have the wrong people, you know, you might have an Agile ritual, but you don't get the benefits working Agile from that perspective. So from doing it all together, and if you're all together, make sure that everyone is there. I want to give you an example. I was doing a project and I had from the business 8 representatives, all very different user groups working with the same solution. So I got them in heartbeat sessions, and I noticed that one of the 8 business representatives was dropping out with an excuse of, like, you know, I'm too busy. So you miss someone for 2 or 3 heartbeats, which is basically you don't meet for, let's say, 6, 7 working days. And then they come back into the team, decisions have been made, feedback has been given and implemented in the prototype, and they don't agree because they weren't there. And they cause a debate, and you have a delay. So having the right people there, not only the right people, but also making sure they talk in the, you know, at the right time together is very important. This means that you have the right people and you have to make them available. They have to be there. And someone asked me this morning, you know, if you work this way, what does it mean for you? So, well, in my time when I did commercial projects, like, you know, 10 to 15 years ago, it would mean that I would easily be, you know, like spending 50 to maybe 75% of my time running around the building if we had an Agile ritual, making sure that the right person was there. not only the right person, but also present in the interaction ritual. And then the point is, if you have, you know, a multidiscipline team in a workshop, but you mess up the workshop. So this is about the quality of the interaction rituals. You get into a problem because, you know, they are, for example, business representatives. They are with you in the workshop, and they think the workshop is not useful for them. Next time they don't show up. So from the moment that you get into, you know, really corporate agile, and you have teams that are multidisciplined, you know, covering every discipline that you need to bring it from the start into implementation, means that you have to do the rituals very disciplined. People have to be there, and you have to do them high quality. Now, from that perspective, just being there and not being pushed by, you know, the rush of the day where people say, you know, I'm so busy and my managers are pushing me around, so I don't have time for this heartbeat session. I don't have time for this demo. I don't have time for this daily. What will happen is that the power of the interaction ritual goes down. Very often, people will start stepping back, and this is where paradigms come in. People will start stepping back into the old ways of communication. And remember, Agile is, you know, moving away from remote and written, going into face-to-face communication. But, you know, if we don't need, I see people that ask the Humanity Agile coaches to go into an Agile transformation, so they go on site. They are the client, and the first thing they will say is to the Humanity coaches is something like, you know, I'm too busy, just send me an email. And we have to understand that that's another paradigm. Agile is about information at the source. So if you are a client, you need people from the client who can bring in the best knowledge about the business. And then you have people who actually can make it, and you bring them together. If you have people who have the information and people who have to use this information to make it. And if you put something in between, that will always create distortion. Even a document, just one, or just one person, is already a problem. So you have to bring them together. And that's a paradigm shift, because people have so often an excuse not to be there. Now, if you go from the corporate perspective, where you have multidiscipline teams, so full discipline teams that can bring development from scratch, zero, into production, they have to work with the interaction rituals, very disciplined. They have to be there. So that's already a difficult one to comprehend. And then the next one is, okay, if you have people that are working already disciplined, the next one is the quality. The quality of the interaction rituals needs to be very high. And then you go into the next one. So if you have the right people, and if you have them talking at the right time, and if you have, you know, talking with, you know, high quality workshops, the next time is, are they empowered? That's a really, really important one. Empowerment of those in the interaction rituals is crucial to avoid delay. If you have the interaction rituals in Agile with people that are not able to make decisions, not allowed to make decisions about the product, about acceptance, etc., it only means that from the team that's actually making the stuff, you have to go to someone else. And this is causing, again, a risk that someone at the end will say no. So you have a delay, and it's costing a lot of time. So this is why I want to bring people into this way of working in a very interactive way, and also sharing responsibility. I want to give you an example where I ran into about what paradigms can do, and this is about doing Agile versus being Agile. I was at the client side. We were doing Agile transformation, and at the beginning of the transformation, we agreed on how to report on the progress. And of course, the report was, okay, so we have a big transformation backlog. Every sprint at the end, at least we have a demo. We can show you in the transformation team space, based on the backlog, transformation backlog and sprint backlog, what we have done. We have the burn downs, so you can see them. You can ask questions, etc. And we agreed to do this with the management team. And after 3 deliveries, I noticed at the end of every demo, we saw people sitting behind the laptop, making all those notes and typing a lot for a couple of hours. And I found out that what they did, they were making a progress report. And this is what old paradigms do. So what happens is you agree on a more efficient way to work. You agree on having another way of reporting, but the paradigms are so seductive to people that they agree to work in the new way, but still maintain the old ways, which cost a lot of extra time and a lot of extra money and creates delay. So doing Agile versus being Agile is based on, okay, so you adopt the Agile rituals, of course, but you adopt and you accept the underlying paradigms regarding standards, documentation, involvement of people, the way you communicate, the way you report, etc. And the reason why you do is, going back to the beginning of my talk, is that what you want is, you want better business value earlier delivered. That's what you want. And to do this, you want to cut out the delay. And to do that, you need to change the underlying paradigms. And this is the difficulty in an agile transformation. So far for my talk on what doing Agile versus being Agile is, in one line, doing Agile is having Agile rituals, but sticking to all the old underlying paradigms. Being Agile is that you adopt the new paradigms and the new frameworks in the organization. At this moment in time, you see that the struggle is more and more going to, okay, how can we change the paradigms? So from that perspective, I said what I wanted to say. If there are any questions, please let me know. I don't hear anything. Could be there are other questions, obviously, but could also be that there's a technical issue.
So, hi, are you able to hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah. Hi, this is Meenakshi. I have a question. Like, we understand that when we are trying to do Agile versus be Agile, people tend to go back to their original style. They want to create reports, and they want, in the meeting, they want to look into their laptops. And all those things happen even in the retrospective or planning meeting. People are engrossed into their own work in the laptop. So I sometimes feel that they should not be doing it, but the problem is, how do we tell it? Like, it looks like a teacher to tell people, like, don't look into your laptop, don't do this and don't do that. So it becomes very difficult to implement it, even though you understand.
Yes, I do understand your point, and it's even more difficult because like 10 years or 12 years ago, you could see if someone was on the phone. Okay, this is something that has nothing to do with the workshop, but today someone might say, yeah, but I'm using my phone to make notes, right? So it's even becoming more complicated. It's about awareness. People have to understand the importance of being there. Very simple thing is, if you have to recognize that as an individual, if you do in a workshop, you do multiple things at the same time, you're context switching your brain all the time, brings down your collaboration, your co-creation skills, the sharpness of your mind. But people feel pushed to do this. Now, how can you avoid it? Never 100%, because there will always be people that have an excuse. But what I have seen and what I have done is that at the beginning of a meeting, we make an agreement. We have every hour, we have a 10-minute break, and during the hour, we put the phones on the side. I just have a basket and I collect all the phones, and we make notes on flip charts that we all share instead of making notes on your own laptop that other people can't see. That kind of thing. But maybe before you do this, if you go, for example, we cannot change individuals. That's impossible. People can only change themselves if they feel the motivation to do so. So you have to give people motivation to do it differently. And there are multiple things that you can do. But for example, one of the things in the transformation process that we do to try to, I like the word disruptive change. It sounds dramatically, but it has to be different really. And the point is, knowing that you're not able to change another individual, this individual is only able to change him or herself, and you need the change in the corporate environment because we're all going to work in an agile way for corporate reasons. First thing you do is in a transformation process, you change what I call the habitat, you change the environment. So you leave the office on Friday, you were working in the traditional way, Monday morning we start the transformation process, and what happens is from now on we work agile. That definition of agile for that company, you can use all sorts of methods and practices. That's another debate. What is agile for this specific company? But if you align, okay, this is how we work from now on, and we use a couple of practices from extreme programming, from Scrum, and from, I don't know, Lean, Kanban, DSDM, that's how we work. And then you need, and I think this is, the eyes from the outside help you to overcome this. So you need, for example, agile coaches or change agents or whatever you call them, that keep the people in the new settings, in the new environments very sharp, not to step back into the old ways of working, because the old ways of working, those are the paradigms. And the paradigms in an organization are defined by bureaucracy, by decision-making processes, by personal development plans, by the way you can make promotion and move upward in the organization. So it's very thick, and you need to really change that one. And that's the environment you have to change. And then you have to be very strict on the new way of working. Offering people time to find out what the benefits are. So very often, what I ask, because people might be very reluctant, they don't know it, and they're so busy, and then I say, okay, let's try this for 1 or 2 sprints and see if it works, and if you like it, and if it helps. And if you then have a very good coach working with a team, and he can help them to overcome learning the new paradigms by not by stepping back into the old paradigms, but by, okay, this is what you could do to make you move forward in your transformation process. That helps. And that's including the stuff with, using laptops and using, I totally understand what you mean, using cell phones all the time. It's up to the level that people don't even hide that they are working on their phone anymore when you're working with a group. They just do it out in the open. 15 years ago it would have been extremely rude to do so, but now it's even sort of accepted. So, yeah, the working agreement to do this is very important, and that's, you can start this by changing the environment and be very strict and ask, commitment to work on this for 1 or 2 sprints and see for the benefits. And then in your retrospective, you can evaluate and go into, more implementations and next steps. I don't know if it answers your question.
Yeah, it did answer my question. However, yeah, I agree. You have given some suggestions and ideas how we can do it. However, my experience in the past looks like, the Scrum Masters or coaches are being looked at like a teacher kind of thing. If you are there, then people will behave. The moment you are looking elsewhere, or the moment you are not there in the meeting.
Yeah,
so
I know it. Yeah.
I at times feel like a teacher kind of thing.
Yeah, well, to be very honest, people sometimes ask, what is an agile coach? And I don't know about where you live, but where I live, very often I meet the definition of a coach is like the tree hugging, and he helps you so you can discover. And I will say, no, it's not. An agile coach is like a sports coach. And the sports coach says, first of all, we're going to play a different ball game. So we start by learning the rules of the game and applying those rules of the game really strict. That's how it works. If you play soccer, a penalty is from 11 meters, not from 9, not from 13, it's from 11 meters. That's how it works. So the moment that you have changed the environment and people understand the rules of the ball game, which requires directive coaching, and you've been working for a couple of sprints like this, then you can get to the emotional side, which is another aspect of the Agile coach, that you can say, okay, so you know the rules of the game, and you have also to to learn with, to work with difficult people. If we make the metaphor in sports, you have to emotional deal with a loss and a win and a difficult referee or a difficult opponent. So the emotional side is there as well. But you have to start with the rules of the game, and to be very honest, very often having someone from outside who is really skilled as a coach is extremely beneficial to the organization. Now the next point is, at one moment in time, it's like you said, they are leaving. Either they leave the room or they leave the company as a coach because they go to another client. And how do you sustain the change? And for me, it's very important that you have a process sustaining the change, that you go from, first of all, changing the habitat, then learning the people very disciplined how to do it as a team. And the moment they work as a team, then you help people as an individual. Okay, where are your personal impediments? The coach will help you, and how can we solve them? Once you've gone through that process, there's a huge step forward. But the big point is still the coach, external coach, will leave at one moment in time. And this is why when we do Agile transformations, we have the Humanity Coach Academy. We always make sure that we educate, train, and coach people from the client to be coaches, so that the moment that we left, they can help to sustain the paradigms, the new paradigms. Because paradigm change is not something that you do in a couple of months, especially when it's in a big corporate with bureaucracy and HR processes and etc., etc. So you need an internal body of knowledge and an internal community that sustains the change. And then at one moment in time, not because you say so, but because people understand, they are seeing it, they have experienced it, and they have the support from the organization because the paradigms have changed, then they will come into the rhythm. But a lot of people will all the way, get back to the old paradigms. And the biggest one is, I am so busy, I need to check my phone. And that's a difficult one for the next couple of years, I guess. So I'm not able to solve your problem completely, sorry.
Yeah, sure, thank you. Great discussion.
Yeah, you're welcome. Any more questions?
So there is one question from Ernst Beek. How to avoid classical behavior?
Well, okay, there are a couple of things that are success factors in Agile transformation, and really, are either the difference between doing Agile or being Agile. First of all, you have to understand, if we go back to the previous talk, if people are working in an organization, in a bank or in an insurance company or in a governmental organization for 10, 15, 20 years, it's the traditional behavior, it's in their DNA, it's in their bones, right? So the transformation takes time. Now, facilitating those people, in the delivery teams to make the change and to sustain the change requires a couple of things, and the most important one is what I call commitment in the vertical of the organization. So the teams are in the horizontal, they do the delivery, but then we have the vertical, one or more layers of managers. And as long as the level above you is demonstrating traditional behavior, the teams will give a traditional response. So in the transformation and in the coaching, and also if you do just an Agile, let's say you do an Agile MVP delivery or an Agile project, at the top, starting to ask commitment and make a working agreement. So this is how we work, Agile, dailies, retros, demos, and we have visuals for documentation, and this is the way we accept stuff. That kind of thing is crucial there. I don't know if it answers your question, but traditional behavior is stuck to people because they very much use it, very often for years, especially when you go into transformation. The impact of management behavior down in the organization is 100%. If they ask for traditional stuff, you will get traditional stuff. And then also understanding that what paradigms do is paradigms, they define your reflexes under stress. So if you go into agile working and it's not working, and when people go into transformation and they start agile working for the first time, or they're not really experiencing it, sometimes it's difficult, things go wrong. And what other thing do you have than your old framework, your old reference, your old paradigms? So the third one to avoid traditional, stepping back into traditional behavior is making sure, coming back to what we talked about before, is that you have coaches, either internal or external, that help individuals and teams the moment that it gets tough. Okay, how can we work and move forward and continuously improve an agile way of working in saying, hey, it doesn't work, we step back into the traditional way of working. So that's just a couple of things.
So there is a question from Christian. Where do you see the root of an agile transition? Does it have to be driven from management top down, or can it happen from a form of a grassroots movement from the bottom?
I think both ways can. It depends on the need of the organization. If you have an organization that's really in a squeeze because there are a lot of changes going on in the market and they need to be able to respond and they don't know how, then it's more easy to bring in a disruptive change, what Agile is. If an Agile transformation is a disruptive change. So if the company or the organization is in need, there is much more space for a disruptive change than for a company that says, hey, we're number one in the business, so why should we do this? Then it's more in baby steps forward. If you start at the bottom, you have a huge motivation from the delivery teams to do it, so that's awesome, but they will bump in to the ceiling of the managers. Hey, what are you doing? We are used to run this organization in a different way. If you do it top down, it's awesome in the transformation because you have commitment and you can make things happen because you have the support from the management and they will facilitate the people in what they need to make their agile transformation. At the same time, there is the risk that people say, I'm in an agile transformation because my boss told me so. So there are different ways of looking at it. All of them are okay, but what's very important that you understand why the change is happening in the organization. Is it pushed by the management? Is it bubbling up from the bottom? Is it because of experiments? Hey, we are doing well, but we are experimenting, or is it based on a very urgent need for the company? And if you can bring them in perspective, you can see what might be in this situation the best approach. But all options are possible given the rest of the situation. I don't know if it answers your question. Maybe it's not an answer at all, but okay, you're welcome. Yeah. If I don't respond to questions or quotes that I see on screen because they pop up very shortly. Right, so I just saw the thank you here and I could see, but sometimes sentences are too long.
Yeah, so I'm going to read another question from Meghna.
Please. Yeah.
So what is your advice for the Indian context when offshore teams are not empowered enough to make decisions? The headquarters tend to push user stories and activities which are of less significance instead of practicing the pull principle. Please advise how to resolve this dilemma.
Okay. I understand the point because you have a huge gap in terms of mileage, in terms of time, in terms of time zones, etc. One of the things that we like in Agile is co-location. And of course, if you're in an offshore team, at least part of the team is not co-located with you. And the question is, how can you bridge that gap? In terms of prioritization, for me, there's only one thing leading. What is the business value? And the business value is not the product owner who says it's important. The business value is quantified as much as possible. Do we need this or not? I want to give you an example. I was in a project, and one of the participants, a lady, said, okay, so what do we do as a requirement in this project with my Excel? The manager sitting next to her said, no, this is not about your Excel, it's about something else, and blah, blah, blah. So she became silent. Just going into a Q&A with the lady and asking her, okay, so what is your Excel? Can you show? Oh, it's making automatically generated memos. Ah, very interesting. So how many memos a year do you produce with your Excel? Oh, I produce 3,500 to 4,000 memos. Oh, okay. So if you do a memo by hand, how much time would it take? Well, approximately 1 hour. This was an efficiency project. And being able, information at the source, to on-site identify together instantly, okay, yeah, we thought it's not important, but if we quantify, we see it's hugely important. That's how we do. So making that kind of process is very important. Now, how do you do this? If you're an offshore team, try to find, because the lady and her manager were from the business representatives, the developers were in the room, being able to ask questions. And the point is, if you have, let's say you're working in India with a large part of the development team, and the rest of the team, the business, might be in Germany or in the Netherlands, I don't know. Make sure that you find a shared time slot, and as much as possible create a really good all stakeholder session, a heartbeat, where you can make that information surface, so that we get the right perspective of what it is, and then together as a team, it's even so that making the decision on priority is not something that a person does, in my opinion, but based on quantification, we all see what the priority is. And if you have a process in the all stakeholder session where you can make the information surface that helps us to make that kind of quote-unquote calculation, that's the helpful thing. So my point to you would be, and then we come back to doing Agile versus being Agile. Being Agile is understanding that all stakeholder sessions are extremely important to avoid delay and to make the right decisions and to get the right answers together. So make sure that you bring those all stakeholder sessions, the heartbeats, and set up video calls and that kind of stuff to make that happen with the right people. Also allowed, they have the knowledge and they are allowed to make decisions. I hope this helps you as an answer.
Yeah. So there is a question from Kathiration. So how to bring in more agile maturity in team?
Wow, how to bring in more maturity into the team. I think it's as an Agile coach or as an Agile, as a Scrum Master, which has a coaching aspect in the role, stick to the rituals and especially spend time on the retrospective. A couple of things. First of all, transparency needs to be high, so people need to feel safe to open up in dailies, to open up in heartbeats, to give and receive feedback. That's very important. If people feel uncomfortable giving or receiving feedback, it becomes a problem. So number one is create a safe environment where people feel free to give and receive feedback. And the next one is you look, for example, at retrospectives, which is an awesome vehicle for continuous growth of individuals and therefore the teams. For me, the most important one is, so you go into a retrospective, you identify improvements to be made, and implement improvements. If we identify that we need to work on our skill to slice stories, if we identify that we need to work on our skill to make better estimates with poker session, if we need to work on better information radiators, spend time on learning. So one of the things, if that takes for the team 4 hours in the next sprint, to build that skill to bring that skill to a better level, then implement it. So I like, if you go into a retrospective, you have an outcome, couple of lessons learned, things to improve, and you take the first one, minimum the first one, and put it on the backlog of the next sprint on priority place number 3. So you know that every sprint there will be an improvement. And that will help you to have a continuous process of growing maturity of your individuals and the individuals as a team. I hope it answers your question. I saw a question coming by about the role of a Scrum Master in a transformation, but I wasn't able to read it, so maybe you can read it out loud.
So how important is a Scrum Master role in Agile transformation, as this role is seen as an optional role?
Yeah, if you go working Agile in a team, you have a Scrum Master. So if you go into transformation, you assemble multidiscipline teams, you put a coach on top of the team, but in that team there is a Scrum Master. So the Scrum Master is, of course, is someone you need. I want to make a note on the side here. What is a really concern for me at the moment is that Agile for me is also moving away from individual tasks to team delivery. This means that you want to avoid silos, because a silo means if this person isn't there, we have a problem, because we need to wait for this person to return. It's the same thing for the Scrum Master. Those roles are roles, not necessarily individuals. So is there a place for the Scrum Master in the transformation? Yes, of course, because very often part of the coaching role is taken over by the Scrum Master. Maybe not in the beginning of the transformation process, but especially later on. But I like to see even more that after a while, and coming also back to the maturity question before, that after a while, if the team becomes more mature and more mature, there is not a person, a Scrum Master. No, the team is, let's say, Scrum Mastering themselves. And that's because there's not a person who is only developer. There's not a person who is only an analyst. There's not a person who is only a tester. No, those are roles. And based on the T-shape, every individual has multiple things that he or she can do. And that includes the role of the Scrum Master. But especially in the transformation process, when you start it, you need someone with a certain strength to Scrum Master the team in the times of coaching. So the short answer is yes. Hope it answers your question.
How to deal with fake POs or proxy?
Yeah. Okay. Now this is a nice one, because especially the way I work, for me, to make it clear, for me a product owner is a proxy. Because Agile is about information at the source. So I have business people, they want a solution. Here we have a development team, and they ask the information so they can make the solution. If I put someone in between, the only thing is I get here, interpretations and assumptions, and then going back to the team with interpretations and assumptions again. So you want to cut that out, information at the source. But the business people, they have a job of their own, and it's very difficult to have them available all the time. So for me, the product owner / the analytical role in the team is something you can say you can be proxy, because in between the heartbeats, and the way I work, every 3 to 4 days we have like half an hour to an hour heartbeat, where you have quick feedback loops on what we have produced so far with the business. And in between, if there are any urgent questions from the developers, testers, analysts, to the business, then the product owner can be the proxy. But there's a risk, and the risk is that the proxy takes decisions, gives information, and the people from the business simply don't agree. So the moment that you have either a heartbeat, or even worse, at the end of a sprint you have a demo, they will simply say, but it's not what I asked for. And then you get the sick jokes like, we're doing Agile, we deliver every 2 sprints something you don't need. So it's really I have worked with it. Can be very good, but it's not without a risk. I hope it answers your question.
How to deal with pseudo coaches?
How to deal with what? Sorry?
Pseudo coaches. PSEDO. Pseudo coaches.
PSE? I don't know this one. Can you type it out maybe? And maybe there's a word, another word I use it for. Ah, ha. Well, yes, I got it. Thank you very much. Well, I don't know about where you live. Again, you know, people from very different countries at the moment. But I meet, you know, if I go out for a drink, 10 to 1, that the one person next to me is an agile coach. Right? And I meet people that are agile coaches, and I simply ask the question, for example, so, you know, what kind of, you know, other agile practices do you, because okay, I'm using Scrum, okay, what other agile methods or practices do you use? And they simply don't understand what I ask, and that's a concern. It's you know, in the land of the blind, one eye is king, as we say in the Netherlands. For me, it's very difficult. I see, for example, in commercial processes that we go for the cheapest one. Yeah, okay, so also not without the risk. How to deal with pseudo coaches? You know, we will learn. We will see. For me, if you ask me what is the real strength of an agile coach, is that you have been there and done it yourself, but also that you understand coaching, individual coaching, team dynamics, overcoming paradigms. And I always say that if you're an agile coach, 40% is about agile and 60% is about coaching. And I just make these numbers because I want to emphasize that being very good in understanding behavioral change is for me the most important, because it's like not every good football player is a good coach, right? But you need to understand football to be a good coach, and that's the kind of thing that I want to say. What do you do with pseudo coaches? Well, get rid of them. But to be honest, it's in a selection process that you need to find out together. You know, you get people on the job, ask for them how they handle, you know, use simple techniques like STAR, ask them what they did and how it worked, and especially look at the way their knowledge and the way they self-reflect. That's important. But once you are there, yeah, if you have them, get rid of them. Yeah.
So what are the different metric factors that help us to identify doing versus being agile?
Metrics that prove doing agile versus being agile. Well, to be very honest, I think you know, like time to market, the quality of the work, the user acceptance, happiness of team members. You know, if managers are still pushing around people, I meet people, and okay, this is a quote from a gentleman from Central Europe. He said, you know, Arie, I thought that agile working would be so nice, you know, self-organizing and that kind of stuff. He said, no, before working agile, I worked 8 hours a day, and now I work 12. And I still unhappy clients. And what happened, that it was used as an excuse to push more work into people. And I think this is really, you know, coming back to what I said before. It's you know, this is why you have to do it. You have to bring in the understanding in the vertical and in the horizontal, so to be able to do it as a whole. I have to be very honest that the question slipped my mind. So maybe you can repeat the question, because I'm drifting off, I notice.
Yeah. So how important is to have a positive psychology skills for the agile coaches?
Yeah, very, very. We have a workforce, and not every one of them, but we have psychologists, clinical psychologists, social psychologists, organizational psychologists, working as Agile coaches. They've been Agilists themselves, they are Agilists still, but they understand the dynamics of change and human behavior. You don't have to have them all, but if you assemble transformation teams, there need to be people with those kind of skills and that kind of knowledge on board, as much as you need, for example, people who understand CI/CD and automated testing, and about branching strategies, etc. So it's a mix. So we identified, for example, 4 types of coaching. The first one is the technical coach. Then we have the team coach. We have the organization coach, the change, for example, bureaucracy, etc., and the management coach. And from that, where we work in Humanity, our own people can at least just play 2 of those roles, and sometimes 3, and exceptional they can do all 4. But in a team, you need the psychology skills. So what we have, for example, in Humanity is that we have knowledge shares, and those are in daytime. We plan every month that we get together, and every 3 months, all coaches from Humanity International get together. The last one was in Rotterdam. We had not all of them, of course, I think there were 90 Agile coaches together, and we align and we share. And the alignment is, of course, on technology, because not all psychologists understand technology, but also on the psychology part, because not all the technical coaches understand the psychology. And a technical coach never has to be a psychologist, and a psychologist never has to be a technical person, but just understanding each other and aligning and know, okay, this is where I stop, and this is where I bring in someone else, to help me as a coach. It's very important. And if you go into the client side for a transformation, there always needs to be psychological knowledge and experience on the team.
Hi, Arie, Saurabh here.
Hi.
I have one question. What is the importance of implementing tools like we have Jira or Rally, things like this, at the very early stage of Agile implementation in a new project?
Well, okay. To be very honest, I think if you really want to work Agile, you want to make speed, and you want to make really delivery every 2 weeks, you cannot do without tools. The question before about offshoring, if I am here in the Netherlands and you are in India, and we need a plan board, we need tools. We need Jira, we need whatever you want to use, link it. But I would like to take one step back. And when we wrote the Agile Manifesto, we didn't talk about planning tools. Exactly. And that's a sign. So it starts with the mindset, the paradigms that we do, being Agile versus doing Agile. And moment you have that in place, and then you can bring in the tooling. And it's not just about Jira, because then Jira is awesome, or Link It Kanban is awesome, and Trello is awesome. Then you need those tools, but start with the mindset. And it's the same with tools for integration and for deployment and for testing. Using those tools doesn't mean you work Agile. Agile starts with the mindset. But once you have the mindset in place, yeah, you need those tools. When you have geographical distribution, you need those tools, so you have to do so. Yeah. Is that answering your question?
I would say yes, but still I would like to give you one background why I'm asking this question. I have experienced in my profession that people are, while transiting from waterfall to Agile, they are more into learning tools and quickly following things over the tool in spite of understanding what Agile exactly is.
Yeah.
So that's how I see following the tool as a challenge, because it blocks the mind of the resources in understanding what is Agile and how should they treat it, then running behind the tool, and probably somewhat they are again following the waterfall methodology in the back.
I totally agree. Yeah, but I totally agree. What happens is that it's so safe, just give me a tool. I learned a tool and now I'm Agile, right? Instead of changing your paradigms. For this reason alone, what we do in the transformation process, when we take teams into transformation, the first, let's say, 2 months or something, we don't talk about tools. We do everything on flip charts, post-its, because we're going to want to get the mindset first. So I talked about environment, then of the team, and then on the individual level. And the first two, changing the environment and getting the team rituals really so in the transformation process, so step 1, step 2, later on step 3, until step 2, no tools. Mindset first, because people, we are using Jira, we are agile. And Jira is awesome, but Jira doesn't make you agile. And that's why we do it like this. Yeah. I understand your point. You totally have a point. Yeah.
Thank you. Yeah, this answers.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Thank you.
You're welcome, James. Are there more questions? Or I think we run over time. I don't know if it's okay, but
I think we do not have any for. That's the last question. What will be the next hype or wave of after Agile?
I just want to respond to James. He said in the type here, thank you, Arie, that was a good one. Jira is not agile. Well, Jira can be used in an agile environment very much, but Jira doesn't make you agile, right? That's the nuance. The next hype, going to that question, for me it's very difficult to call this a hype. I do it for 25 years. I don't know if 25 years is still a hype. What I think is that this way of working, where you through collaboration and interaction are able to respond faster, because that's the only thing that we want to do with high quality, is a necessity for survival. Agile makes you future-proof. So I think the next step will be that from where we are now in teams working Agile, it will move into corporate Agile and also Agile HR. And Agile is very much based on modern leadership. So if you look, for example, at Jürgen Appelow's Management 3.0, if you look at modern leadership, where you are, the servant leadership, there's a whole lot of steps to be made. So I think the next hype, I don't know about the next hype, but I can see the nearby future, corporate Agile and Agile HR, and not from the Agile perspective, but then, okay, this is modern times, 2018, 19, 20, what do we do? Okay, we treat our people in a different way. And I think that's the way to go. Corporate Agile and different ways of perceiving employers and employees.
So, Arie, that's the last question for today. So, where an external coach helped more than an internal one?
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, sure. So you mentioned that an external coach is more effective than an internal coach. So could you please elaborate this some more and give us an example from your experience where an external coach helped more than an internal coach?
Before answering the question, I someone said, okay, I send you a connection request on LinkedIn. Yeah, everyone, if you're there, you want to connect on LinkedIn or want to follow on Twitter, feel free to do so. Coming back to the question, if you are in an organization, you're on the payroll, you're as a coach, you need to do a disruptive task. There's always in the back of your mind, what if I do? Will my management agree? Will my colleagues still like me next week? And as an external, you don't have that problem, or you shouldn't have that problem. And we know, when I say going into transformation with my client, I say, okay, thank you for asking us and thank you for trusting us. But to be very honest, realize that between now and 3 months, you don't like us anymore. Or at least you had a moment that you don't like us. Because as a coach, the moment that you say, oh, no, this is with us really impossible, then we say, no, it isn't. And we push you over the limit as a coach. We bring you out of your comfort zone, right? And that can feel very uncomfortable. And I think if you don't have a past with an organization and you don't have a future with that organization because you're not on the payroll, it's less threatening to take strong position and to push people over the limits and to to show them what really can be beneficial. So that's why, especially in the beginning, it really helps to have external coaches and trainers. I hope it answers the question.
This is very, very helpful. I would like to thank Arie for your time and sharing your experience.
You're very
Your
welcome.
thought would be very helpful for the participant, I hope.
I hope, and maybe in the future we can do some more. So I would like to take this opportunity to thank everyone who's still there. And the funny thing is, when we started, there were like 14 people, and I think at the moment we're still going up. We're above 70 now. So I would like to thank everyone for being here, staying here, and joining us. And well, if you follow me on Twitter or LinkedIn, most of the time Twitter, then you can see next webinars coming on, and hope to see you back. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Arie, and thank you so much all the participants. Have a great day ahead.
Okay, Jacques, thank you very much for your support in this one.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.